Your name is, please, sir?
Yeah, I'm Duncan Craik, and I'm from Seattle, Washington, I guess. Come down here to race in the fine sunny weather in Portland.
7 days, 37 days of nothing but solid sunshine. How about you up in Seattle?
Oh, same kind of deal. So we've been lucky this year. I guess you can't complain. We started racing in April, and it's been pretty dry all the time. But with the kind of sport we do, you really look forward to it being dry, because it's a bit of a chore racing in the rain. It's not really very pleasurable.
Well, see, I noticed you had an OMRA shirt on there, and you ride at Norton.
I've been coming down here for about 12 years, I guess, just a vintage race. The OMRA people put on a very good event, so it's well worth us coming down from as far away as Seattle. And we did have somebody come up from California to this event as well. And the guy that won one of the races was from British Columbia, from Vancouver. So we get quite a good cross-section of people down here.
Now, this is a city park. Is this pretty unique in the nation here?
I don't know. As I say, I'm from Seattle. I guess it is. I'm not really familiar with the structure of the organisation at all, but it does have advantages, being a city park. I think they get the track rental on any day for a pretty good amount. And of course, this track does host Indy cars as well, so it's got everything from impoverished club races all the way up to the millionaires of the sport.
Well, tell me how long you've been involved in vintage racing, and maybe a little bit about your Norton too.
Okay, well, I started in 1988, I guess, and I started at the relatively old age of about 30, and it's really because I could afford to do it by then. I lived in England for 8 years, and I could never really afford to go racing, because it does soak up a bit of money if you want to do it right. And I started out on a Norton Commando, pretty stock, and I wanted to turn it into a cafe racer. And I figured the only really way you can really use a cafe racer these days is to take it out on the track and see whether it does work properly. And that's how I got into it. I've kind of been doing it ever since, and the bike since has got more and more extreme. Being a racer, you're always lusting after the horsepower, basically. You can never have too much horsepower, so I guess I gradually spent money on it over.
Can you fill in the details? I mean, before there was Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, like in this country here, where we've got, you know, most people would think of Jap bikes.
Well, in between, there's obviously Harley Davidson and Indian, were the homegrown bikes, but in the 50s and 60s, there was a British invasion, if you like, of Triumphs, Matchlesses, Nortons. And then I guess in the 60s and 70s is when the Hondas came, and that was the end of the British bikes, and they died out in their own country as well. They're kind of fun to work on, and that's part of why I do it, is that it's a hobby and it's relaxing to work on them. And some of the technology inside them you can trace back to the early part of the century almost. You can almost, just by looking at them, figure out how they made them, and they were made on pretty primitive machine tools and things. So it's very easy to work on, fun to work on.
Well, tell me about your bike over here. It's what kind of a Norton is that?
It started off life as a Norton Commando. It's a 1970 frame, and it's had various production racer parts put on it, such as the tank and the seat and the fairing and the big double disc brakes set up at the front. Then I got a bit more creative and put a different engine in it. And what it is it's an 8-valve racing engine that was made in England in the early 70s. And it does actually have quite a modern layout. It's got 4 valves per cylinder, although they are operated by push rods. And it spins to about 8,000 RPM and puts out about 70 horsepower. Because it was built for racing, the crank is one piece and very sturdy, and the crankcases are sturdy. and it's stood up pretty well over the years. I guess I've raced that particular engine for about 8 years now.
How many events do they have here, vintage races that you go to?
We run a series called the Sounds of the Past, and what that is we target the particular WMRA, that's Washington Road Race, and Oregon Road Race events. And we try and get as many vintage racers to come out at those particular events. That way you get more people out racing, and it's a lot more fun to race against a whole bunch of people. So we've done 7 races in that series this year. 2 at Portland, 2 at Seattle, 1 at Bremerton up in Washington, 1 at Spokane in Washington, and 1 at Chilliwack. I think that adds up. That's 7.
What can you say about this track as compared to some of the others, since this is an international track, a national track with Indies racing on it? But
it's a very good track. It's safe. It's very safe, so you can get up to pretty extreme speeds. The top vintage bikes are doing about 130 miles per hour at the end of the straight, and that's certainly fast enough to get anybody's attention. I think. It's a flat track. Some of the tracks we run at other places, at Seattle and Spokane, do have some elevation changes. So this track, it's fast, it's got a long straightaway. It is a bit of a horsepower track, I have to say.
Is it competition? Are you here out to win? I mean, would you feel?
Oh yeah, some people are. I don't get too bothered about winning or not winning. A lot of it is, as I say, making the bike run and run well. And a lot of it is just challenging yourself to the next goal, and the next goal can just be the guy in front of you. So you might be running 6th or 7th or something, and the what's the word? The satisfaction is perhaps coming 5th. When you're my age, or the age of some of these guys around here, you've got to realise it's a hobby. We're not doing this to set the world alight or anything. Our next step isn't to go to Grand Prix racing, you know. So we're not in it for that kind of thing. If you take some video of the other bikes around, you kind of get a feel for what we're talking about. Some of them are very shiny and highly polished, but the racers in general aren't just polishers. These bikes do get their neck wrung. They're taken to their red line, and occasionally they blow themselves to bits.
Well, sometimes
so you have to put them all back together again.
That is the fun. It really is, isn't it? Now you might also be racing against some former racers that are maybe actually they're re-envisioning or...
there's not many people racing that, if you like, former racers. There are a couple of racers racing that have raced modern bikes, and they generally tend to be fast. We have occasionally, there's some Canadians that used to race almost professionally, and when those guys do race, yes, it's very difficult to beat them regardless of how fast or slow their bike is.
Can you tell me a little bit about where I would get some information if I wanted to do vintage racing? Is there
in the Northwest, there's a website at oldbrits.com. That's OLD and then BRITTS.com. That has information on our series called SOTP, Sounds of the Past. You could certainly call up the Oregon Motorcycle Racing Association, OMRA, and they can probably put you in touch with some of the local guys that are into it, like Mark Leslie. Would be a good place to start down here. I'm a good person to talk to. My name and email address would be on the Old Brits web page.
And where do you get a chance to practice to ride this thing?
One of the problems is the only really time you get to practice is at a racetrack, and that's when either the Washington Club or the OMRA Club are running practice sessions. You can go out and rent the track. It's about typically $100 a bike. You've probably got to be a licensed racer. The way you become a licensed racer is you call up Oregon or Washington Motorcycle Road Race Club, and they do very good rider race schools that typically take place early in the season, and they're a very good way to get into it. That's how I got into it way back when.
Boy, Honda 305 Scrambler you have here.
Yep.
Looks like it's for sale.
Yep, sure is.
You know, this is one of the first motorcycles that I've actually, this is how I got involved in motorcycles. Is a Honda 305 or Honda 250 Scrambler. A neighbor of mine had one. Can you tell me a little bit about yours?
Oh, this is one that I basically gathered up parts, had extra pieces and stuff, and put this one back together, got it back on the street. I've got probably 6 of them all together. This is just an extra one, basically. And I had pieces and parts. I've got 6 of them, I think, right now. And this was one that I put back together, and just kind of a saleable item for me, because I've got too many of them.
They'll eat you out of home and garage.
Yeah. And they will, you know. I've got a couple more that I got to get together and get going here. So
there was a rumor I heard from years ago that these things were made out of pressed American aluminum beer cans. Is that true? Did you hear that?
I think I've heard that on every Japanese thing that's been brought over here. But,
recycled aluminum beer cans.
Yes. Yeah, you probably scrape the paint off the shocks and find Pabst beer under there or something. Who knows?
Well, let me go take a tour here. Is it totally stock, totally original?
Not totally original. It's about as original as I could put this one together with what's available to try and get them back to originality. Now,
I know you have this for sale for a price, but what did these originally go for back in the 60s when this thing was brand new?
Well, they were around $500.
Is that right?
500, 565, something like that. I believe there was a $50 difference between the 250, the CL72, and the CL77. And most of the people ended up taking the top ends off the 250s, putting 305 top ends on them.
They were sure cheap enough, and that's what got us into that Honda revolution.
Yeah.
My name's Leslie Cook. I've been in vintage racing this is my 6th season. And this is my first season on this bike. And I'm presently racing, and I'm still working the bugs out. And I race with the Washington Motorcycle Road Race Association and the Oregon Motorcycle Road Race Association. And 2 very good clubs. And we have about 8 to 10 events that we can attend a year here between the 2 tracks. And some of us go to Sears Point in the spring to race with AHRMA, which stages 2 races out here in the spring. They're the big national vintage club, and that's a lot of fun.
Well, tell me what brought you into vintage racing, and how long have you had this bike here?
Okay, this is my first season. Like I said, I've been in vintage racing 6 years, but in the 60s I used to race scrambles, race in the dirt with matchless singles, and then I bought a Norton N15 for riding on the street in '67, and I actually started riding motorcycles in the '50s. I was riding BSAs.
So that's why you stick with the British. I mean, you know, before there was Honda, there was British bikes.
Yes, right. That's right. If you wanted to ride a big bike, you rode a British bike. And we were kind of hardcore, and when the Hondas and all that came out, we weren't that much interested in them. We just kept along with the British stuff. That's how we ended up racing it. They're kind of temperamental for street bikes compared to what's around today, but I don't know, if you like them, you like them, and that's what you do.
I own a '65 Norton, so you are speaking to someone who knows.
Yeah. And we had our Norton rally, our National Norton Rally this year at the Thurston County ORV Park. And it was a very well attended event by all Norton people. It was great.
I'll have to check it out sometime. Well, give me a quick little rundown on your motorcycle here. I see it over here, nice chrome and shiny.
Okay.
It's very beautiful.
Thank you. It's a 1964 Norton featherbed frame, which was originally what they call an Atlas. It had a 750 engine in it, 750 twin. It was an Atlas, and the engine cases are from 1967. They come out of an N15 or something. And well, I traded a new old stock gas tank for the frame naturally, and started from there. It's got a Norton gearbox, but it's a Quaife gearbox. It's a reinforced box with close ratio gears, and it's got a belt drive aluminum clutch and an outrigger bearing behind the clutch to support the gear shaft.
But it sounds like you have to be quite a mechanic to work on a bike like this.
Well, you got to be willing to open your checkbook. That's the most hardest part. The actual putting them together is simple. It's really simple, and it's pretty straightforward. It's an aluminum racing barrel from England. It's a Norton Commando head, but it's been redone by Mick Hemmings in England, and he flows all the ports, and he puts bigger intake valves in it than the stock Norton, and then he flows the carburetor, so it breathes a lot better than a stock head. It's kind of a balancing a crank is kind of a trial and error deal. These vertical twins are never really in balance. There's too much weight on the counterweight to really counterbalance the action of the pistons. Well, anyway,
that's why you have a lot of vibration.
Yeah, that's vibration, and the vibration just eats parts up. That's what happened today. One of my muffler mounts broke in the first race, so I safety wired it up, but the safety wire didn't hold in the second race, so they black flagged me, so I had to come in. Other than that, I was running really good. The rods in this engine are stock Commando rods. They're built out of aluminum, and they got a bushing in the small end, and they got regular metal bearings in the bottom end. And they're a fairly bulletproof rod. They're nice and light. The rocker arms have been lightened. It's got good racing valves and valve springs in it. Of course, like we were talking before, the head has been flowed, and the carburetors have been bored out from 32 millimeter to 33 millimeter to match the size of the ports, and then the ports are shaped for the flow, to get good flow, airflow.
You know, another interesting point is it's the electronics, or the electric part of the system called Lucas Electrics. There was, as I recall, owning a Norton, there's an awful lot of jokes about Lucas Electrics. Do you still have some of the original Lucas Magnetos, ignition systems, and things like that, or did you have to go digital?
Well, in my particular case, on both my racing bikes, I use a Joe Hunt Racing Magneto. And I like Magnetos because they're simple. You don't have to mess around with batteries or anything electronic. It's just a little magneto, and it's got a set of points in it and a condenser that you can get at. And it's as bulletproof of a system as you can get. Some people like the electronic ignitions, but then they either got to run an alternator, or they just run a battery, but they call it a total loss system, where they have to charge their battery maybe between races or once a day. But I found the Magnetos to be the best way to go for me. And as far as the Lucas made a good Magneto, but most of them now are 25, 30, 40 years old, and they do wear out, the windings break down. But these Joe Hunt mags are built new. They build millions of them. They're really simple, so they work out the best for me.
So I can get a Joe Hunt Magneto just about at any motorcycle store?
No, not really. The only company I've seen advertise them lately is British Cycle back east. They've actually got them in their ads. But if you could, I don't have the number, but you could call Joe Hunt direct too, and buy direct from him too, I think.
Mm-hmm. Now, where do you get your information about some of these specific things you're talking about? Is there a source, magazines that are devoted to vintage bikes that keep the British bikes alive? You know, in Portland we have just a few places, but if a person wanted to work on it himself, where would he go to?
Okay, there's 4 publications that come out of England devoted to vintage bikes, and one of them is devoted to vintage racing. It's called Classic Racer. And then there's the Classic Motorcycle, and then there's the Classic Motorcyclist, and then there's another one. I can't remember the name right now, but there's 4, and they're really good magazines. And that they're between the advertisement and the tech articles they have, it's a real good way to learn and to see what's available. They have ads for used stuff. And then in the States, there's Old Bike Journal, has a lot of older stuff in it. The AHRMA newsletter has an excellent one ads section in it too. So British stuff is available. A lot of Norton stuff is available. Is you just have to know the places, know the people. If you join the Norton Club, you got a good contact right there.
Now, what about the Oregon Vintage? What is the name of the Oregon club here that races vintage motorcycles?
Well,
is there a club here in Oregon, here in Portland, or something?
Well, they're like us. They race with the Oregon Motorcycle Road Race Association, and which I'm a member of both clubs, the Oregon Club and the Washington Club, and all our vintage is tied in with these 2 clubs, except AHRMA, which is more like a national vintage club, and it's a very excellent club.
Now, this is a club all run by volunteers and people with the same enthusiast desire that you have, and do you guys meet once a month, or?
Yeah.
Well, how would someone want to get involved with the club to maybe come out here and try their hand at vintage racing?
Well, you would go to a club meeting, and you could look up on the internet for OMRA or WIMRA, and under WIMRA you will find a section for the SOTP, Sounds of the Past Vintage Race Series, and then you'll get the address of Fred Eaton or Duncan Craig, and you can call them up and they have all the information. They're kind of those are the 2 guys that kind of put this series, this vintage racing series together.
I think I just spoke to your neighbor. His name is Duncan Craig, and
yes,
got a nice interview with him about that. What a classy setup! A Rolls Royce, totally British, totally British.
Yeah, that's Tom Miller from Vancouver, and he rides the Triumph Triple, and he's very fast, very fast. But he just got nipped the line today, and had to take 2nd place in the series. But he was our champion last year. He's very fast.
Now, do you accept anything other than, is the series open to all makes and models of racing machines?
Yes, it is. Anything 1972 and older is vintage. If you want to go from, say, 72 to 85, that's called classic. And then there's a class for every motorcycle.
So if I bought a Honda 250 Scrambler when they first came out and came out here and ride it, or a Honda Dream, I belong to your club.
That's right. Yeah, you'd be vintage legal. All you'd have to do is safety wire it and put on some good tires, and you're racing. Yeah, the Hondas are very popular because there's a lot of parts available for them, and they're, for the most part, all of them are very fast motorcycles.
My name is Pirkko, and I'm here at the Oregon Motorcycle Road Racing Association's motorcycle races at Portland International Raceway. I was volunteering at scoring, and now I got talked into speaking onto this microphone. I see a bunch of old bikes, old vintage motorcycles around here, and I was told this is the vintage races, and we are just gonna go and find out what the heck this vintage race is all about. And here I am talking to?
I'm Rick Murray.
And you are from California?
Yes, I'm from Sacramento, California.
And most of your sidecar racers are from California. Do we have any here in Oregon, do you know?
Yes, you've got two teams here in Northwest. You have, actually they're both out of the Seattle area, but there's two. There's also a new team in Salem. They're not here today. But you got a growth up here. The Northwest used to be the hotbed for sidecar racing back in the 70s, and it looks like there's going to be a resurgence of it.
So a team consists of a driver and a monkey. What exactly does each person do?
Yeah. Well, the better term is a passenger. Monkey kind of leaves some poor ideas sometimes. A driver operates the brakes and the throttle, and the passenger and the driver together operate the direction. The machine is very sensitive to passenger input. So a passenger has to be very smooth, very agile. And I'm a driver, and my view is the passenger is more important than the driver.
And I have heard that the sidecar racers really like this Portland International Raceway. Is that true, and why?
That's a great track. The people treat us very, very well. It's one of our favorite tracks to go to because of the people that are here. The track itself is a beautiful track. It's scenic and it's safe. If anything were to go amiss, there's lots of grass. It's smooth. It's just a fun place to be.
And how would person get started in sidecar racing? Where do I go and buy such a motorcycle?
Beginning in sidecar racing, we're all a family. We all work with each other, work on each other's machines, bring new people in, help train. The first step is to go for a ride. From then, people either love it or hate it. There's no halfway. And from there, you look at what is available in the way of used machines. You can get into it relatively inexpensive. Go out and learn how to do it, learn how to play. You need a partner. You've got to have a partner, that someone you trust and are willing to, someone that you are willing to accept the responsibility of their life and willing to trust with yours.
Now, Portland International Raceway is owned by the City of Portland. It's a government-owned park. Is this exceptional, or what are how do the other race tracks operate, and what are they like in comparison?
I believe that Portland is unique in the sense of being a city-owned organization. The advantage to clubs and organizations that use it is that it will cost somewhat less, and the clubs have a charter to bring people to the park. So it's good for everybody. The tracks that are in place purely to make money, quote unquote, are operated the same way. A service to the community, whether it's a city-owned park or whether it's a professionally owned private entity, the purpose is still the same. The purpose is to provide something to the public.
Now, out of curiosity, do you guys also ride regular two-wheel motorcycles?
I have a street bike that I ride. I prefer three wheels. Two wheels fall down.
You were just about to leave, but I was told that you would be a person to tell me more about the Oregon vintage motorcycles and about this vintage motorcycle racing event.
I can answer a few questions. I'll try. Sure.
First of all, I'm sorry, what's your name?
My name is Mike Roberts, and I'm the treasurer for Oregon Vintage Motorcyclists.
And how long has this Vintage Motorcycle Association been?
Well, I was founded in 1980, but I'm kind of a newcomer. I joined about a year ago and became treasurer last May. So I'm kind of new at it, but I've been associated with vintage motorcycles for probably the last 2 years. Prior to that, I was involved a lot in modern sport bikes, but now my interest has shifted. But we have a membership of about 180 people, mostly in Oregon and Southwest Washington. We have members in California, Nevada, as far away as New Jersey, and anybody can join that has a vintage bike, and vintage is just defined as anything that's 20 years or older.
I was just going to ask, how old does the bike need to be? And it can be it can be Japanese, American, European.
Any nationality, any brand, just as long as it's 20 years or older. We have members with 1912 Indians, and members with Moto Guzzi's that are just 20 years old, but we have the full spectrum. I would say that the average member in our club probably owns 3 vintage motorcycles. And we have a yearly event in Corvallis. It's a motorcycle show and a swap meet in May of every year. And then, of course, we have vintage days here at P.I.R. every September.
So, do you have any other events during the season, or?
Yeah, we meet weekly, or I mean monthly. The second Saturday of every month we meet at Beach's Restaurant in Vancouver. We have a poker run through Clark County and across the river in Washington every summer. It's a 100-mile poker run. Usually 30 to 40 vintage motorcycles participate in that.
And is this your baby on the bed of your truck here?
This is my English girlfriend, yes. My English girlfriend.
How old is she?
She's 28 years old. It's a 1970 Norton, restored by Kenny Dreher in Oregon City. I bought it fully restored and ride it everywhere. It's my baby.
She looks pretty. I was just told you cannot say cute of a motorcycle, but so I say she's very pretty.
Well, she's cute too.
And do you have any other ones?
Yes, I also have a 1957 Triumph Tr6 that my brother gave me. He bought it brand new in 1957, and I'm restoring it.
Family-oriented area of the country too. So it really is. It is the thing to promote.
We have, for example, this machine has 2 brothers. We've got a father-son team out of Southern California. East Coast has twin sisters that run. There's a number of husband and wife teams. There's a very, very high percentage of women in this sport. Very high. Heather and I, and it's not for appearance. Heather and I have been together for 7 years, and she's the main reason we carry that #1 plate. She's good. And it's just, those are other issues that you can play on.
Which unfortunately is the difficult part of being tied with motorcycles. If your main demographic is very different from their main demographic, and all you really draw from as long as you're running in their event is their demographic. Unless it comes through, say, hat.
Yeah, but unless the participation in the event is promoted separately, then the motorcycle event gains people that might not otherwise come and look at the motorcycle event.
That's right. Yeah.
And the sidecars game. We've run historically. We've run with NASCAR. We've run with Indy Lights. We've run with SCCA. We've run with Trans Am. We've run with other motorsport events because we are neither fish nor fowl.
Well, it's like my son told me a long time ago. You take people and you throw them to a motorcycle and back away. They're afraid of it. You put a sidecar on it, and they're immediately taking their kid and put it into the sidecar, take them for a ride. The same mom that won't ride the motorcycle will put their kid in a sidecar.
Sidecars came out of Europe originally. Racing certainly. There's reasons, economic reasons, why sidecars are popular in Europe. Issues of road tax, gasoline mileage, so forth. That's not so much anymore with the advent of the Japanese cars and so forth. But for a long time, there were people that rode motorcycles with sidecars year-round, snow, ice, and everything, because it costs less. And so there's sidecars are family. And there's a tremendous number of street sidecars. People still have 20-some odd manufacturers of sidecars in the United States, of street sidecars. You just don't see very many.
And some of them are right here in the Northwest.
That's right. You know, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring all of the three-wheeled, if you will, organizations under one umbrella, so that we exchange information, ideas, promotional. You know, the motocross racers, we're going to exchange promotional ideas because we're shooting at the same demographics, which is broad. And it's just, you know, there's a point. It's a matter of being at the right place at the right time. You know, I had really had my hopes up because 2 years ago, Microsoft sent 5 people down to Sears Point to film a media event we did. And I had hoped that would have gone somewhere. There's still communications. But they were interested enough to fly 5 people to California and put the one team on their website for a month. Matter of marketing.
You know, it's really, the sidecar motorcycle fits into a no man's land because we've always thought of motor vehicles are 2-wheel or they're 4-wheel. And it almost draws the demographics from both groups, and it steals from both groups. And the sidecar will do what the motorcycle won't do, and it'll do what the car won't do. And it basically gives you the best of both worlds. And there's a lot of people, because of the fact that there isn't the exposure that there should be, there's a lot of people that haven't been exposed to it, and if we were exposed to it, I think you'd wind up seeing a lot more sidecars on the road today than what there actually is, because of the fact that we've pulled away from that. Because like you say, the sidecar has mostly been a European phenomenon, but it's just as viable in the States as it is in Asia or Europe, either one. And it's considered a status vehicle in Japan. Even anything that's over 750 cc's in a motorcycle is a status vehicle. Because of the fact of their licensing requirements are so difficult. They have 750 cc and larger, they have a 90% failure ratio on the driving test for the 2-wheel motorcycle. And if you put a sidecar on it, they don't have to do some of those things, and therefore makes it more popular and easier for them to ride. This is the reason that Honda came out with the 3-wheel Goldwing in Japan, because of the fact that it didn't meet the driver's license requirements, or the driver's license requirements were modified for that large of a vehicle, because it's over at 1600 cc's, it's over the 750 cc. And so it doesn't, you don't have to be able to be on the bike, break both wheels loose, and be able to stay upright and recover from it, which you have to be able to do on that driver's license exam in Japan. The 3-wheeler, you don't have to do it. Right, or to ride it down a balance beam. And you put a sidecar on that motorcycle, you don't have to do that. And it isn't necessary, and it is easier for a person to ride. And you can carry more people. And it's different, so it immediately attracts people. Gee, what's that? And that's literally what I did. When I first saw this car, I saw it with the body set off it. And I said to my son, hey, what's that? He said, oh, didn't I show those to you in the magazine? No, I hadn't seen them. Because it looks very different than my old Honda 750 with a sidecar on it.
He didn't really realize what he was going to get to see today. I thought I had shown him pictures, but I guess I showed everybody else but him.
And absolutely no concept of these. These are really, you know, very, very different. It's probably, as far as I'm concerned, I'm willing to bet if they allowed it to happen, this would be the most popular vehicle and event here today. If they spent a couple, 3 hours just taking people for rides, you could very easily promote and another event within the next 90 days. I'm willing to bet nothing but sidecars and have as many people here.
The only issue is numbers. You know, we need more teams. We can get machines. That's not a problem. We can get machines. It's getting teams.
Numbers and promotion.
Yeah.
Those are the,
and then which comes first? As my view, as the president of the organization here, and I've been in this position now for too many years, I think. My view is numbers are our key issue. If we had 50 teams in the West Coast, we could literally write our own ticket to whenever and wherever we wanted to go racing. Because we ran at Laguna this year, and I was talking with the promoters, and of course it's not an official number, but they indicated that they had 15 to 20% increase in pre-entry ticket sales for the event. The only change in the venue was our appearance. And that was 35,000 people were there.
But it's promotion that's going to be the most important, because the only way you're going to get those numbers is promotion.
Yeah.
And as you're mentioning there, the interest is there, but even more than that, is there a lot of people that, if they knew about it, if they knew what was involved with it, would be interested. If they knew what sidecar racing was about, the kind of activity that's involved, how much excitement there is, the physical part of it that the passenger does, they'd be a lot more interested in it. And I think there's a lot of potential and a lot of people that are in the demographics of who race that are never marketed to come to a race. And if they never come to a race, how are they ever going to get interested in being involved in the racing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a catch-22. I look at it. I mean, I can't see any negatives to the sport other than, yeah, you spend money and you go do something dangerous. And, you know, sitting in the bathtub or sitting on the couch drinking beer is dangerous too. I mean, it depends on your viewpoint. But how many motorsports can somebody my age carry the #1 plate? You want another hook?
Yeah. And you're going to have, I think that the average person is going to fit in the same category I was. I had no idea what I was coming to see today. I thought I did, but I didn't. I really didn't. And I think that the average person fits in that type of category, in that they have no concept of what this thing is. Never seen one before, never seen them perform, have never ridden in one. And I'm willing to bet that being extremely conservative, if at least 1 out of every 10 people that rode in this thing just went for a ride, nice, lackadaisical, easy run around the track, and say, yeah, it's in my blood, I gotta watch it, where's the next event? We're going. And you'd have your numbers. And if you could set it up so that every time you had an event, that you spent an hour giving rides to anybody. Nice, slow, lackadaisical, easy rides where they didn't have to worry about leathers or any safety equipment. Just sit down there and hang on and chug around a track. That's all you'd need.
Yeah,
you'd need the leathers.
That would be too high a risk. I mean, because I'm a California boy, so we're in a litigating society. But I would feel uncomfortable having somebody back there that was not coached and protected, because the mishap that could occur would undo more than anything we could have.
Not to mention, with the racing outfit, you're only inches off the ground.
The thing is if a passenger leaves one of these things in speed, the probability of injury is far less than a solo bike. Really, because on a track like this, as safe as this track is, you're not on the pavement very long, you're on the grass. And if you don't twist and bend something, you're already on the ground. You're just going for a long slide. In that sense, it's safe. The driver's far more risk than a passenger, which most people don't realize.
As long as I can find this
Well, the thing is,
Hand
part of
holster.
that is you flap your hand. And the thing is, you're not, the passenger's weight is critical. What is more important in a training run is movement. Because were you to go for that and just sort of go that way and stop, the whole back of the machine will go with you, right?
Yeah.
You've been there.
I kind of goofed once.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you make a
Right turn, the passenger leans right.
yeah, you go to the inside of the turn. Because what you're doing is you're counteracting the G-forces caused. On a left-hand turn,
So I want to move my butt.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, just drop down, drop right in there,
Oh, okay.
see, like that. See, what you're doing is you're rolling across on your knees. If you think about it,
Okay.
what you do, your knees are kind of staying in place. You let your toes go under, your feet are small enough they won't hit the ground. What you're doing is you're rolling across on your knees. See how this hand always stays in place. See, this machine's a little small for you. But see, what you're doing is the left hand stays in place, and you're rolling back and forth across the machine. You're rolling across your knees. In an extreme, you know, the positions are far amplified at full racing position.
And then this thing corners hard enough to lift this wheel, that wheel off the ground.
Oh, easily. Yeah, easily. This will run on a right-hand turn. I can do a G1/2 side load. That's about the point in time when the tires let go. Left-hand turn is about 1G, which is all we can handle in counterweight. The tires aren't going, but that's all there is. But you're thinking, when you visualize, yeah, you're sitting on the machine and you're sitting here in this, in the right-hand turn. You're like this. Well, it feels uncomfortable. Visualize if the machine was standing on its wheel like this way. In other words, that it's up here. See, you're holding up there to stay up there because of where the G-forces are going. It's very different. Yeah, you just drop right. Yeah, you're just dropping right in there. And you know what you can do, like let me show you. Heather's better. See, like where I'm on my knees. See, this handle is not convenient for the staying in the car position, but my passenger comes all the way out like this to where she's just off the ground, and she's braced around like so, and then on the right hand position she goes over like this. This hand's always stays in place.
Yeah, I remember seeing her.
Yeah.
Foot was almost touching the rear tire.
Yeah, she hangs her foot like this. She hooks her knee right on the corner of your fender because we've got the G plus that way. It's very difficult to stay in the position. You know, when you're like this. But it's natural. It's where everything falls in place. Your hands fall in place. And you know, if you get into the sport, you actually do it, you know, on a regular basis. Be you a driver or a passenger, everything is fitted. In other words, you don't want to go, oh, where's the hand hold? You simply come over and you drop your hand, and the hand holds her foot there. Everything's custom.
My name is Heather Boletto, and I'm a professional sidecar racer. And I've been doing this about, let's see, this is my 6th season. And
I hear they can't do without you.
no, this is a team sport, so it's definitely something where you have to have reliable friends to make sure that you go racing. You know, if one of us doesn't show up, then the other person doesn't get to race.
What else do you enjoy about Portland other than the track here?
Well, we come up here maybe twice a year for racing. We always do September, so we try to hit the Oktoberfest at Portland Brewing Company and some of the other breweries. Some of our favorite places to hang out.
Well, Portland does have a affinity for brew pubs in Portland here. I think we started it all.
Yeah, we've visited a few. Every time we come up, we try to pick another one to wander through. And
now, where are you from?
Sacramento.
Sacramento?
Yeah.
Now, tell me, in Sacramento, do they have the same type of thing, brew clubs and homebrew things?
There are a few. It's not quite as extensive as Portland. Portland has, you know, the commercial brew pubs where they actually bottle beer and sell a lot of it, in addition to just having, you know, like a little restaurant pub. In Sacramento, most of the smaller little brew pubs don't bottle it and sell it in, you know, commercial aspects in, you know, to such extent as you find the ones here. So it's mostly like something that they would sell locally.
Let's get back to your sidecar activities here. Do you have to work out? What do you do to prepare for an event?
I try to go to the gym a few times a week, just to keep my mental agility, you know, keep focused and get a little bit of exercise so that I have some endurance for the longer races. When it starts getting warmer, it gets pretty stressful muscle-wise, so it's good to keep in shape.
What would you advise for a newcomer to the sport of sidecar racing, and how would you enthrall them into getting involved?
The easiest way is put them on and take them for a couple of laps around the track, and that usually hooks people right away.
Is that how you got hooked?
Yes, pretty much. That's it.
The other way. I heard you helped somebody win a #1 plate.
Yeah, we've been the #1 team. Let's see, last 2 years we were national, and in addition, like the last 4 years, we've been the West Coast regional champions. So.
Now, I know you have an Oregon t-shirt on, which is the OMRA t-shirt. Would you recommend all your other California buddies coming up here to Oregon and racing here at P.I.R?
Oh yes, definitely. This is a really fun track to race. You have, you know, the really long straight, so you can, you know, do your top end and see how fast you can get it to go, because you know, you don't run out of straightaway. And then it also has some of the technical turns, you know, so it's a very fun track.
What would you say, you know, in terms of this virtual reality we have here? How would you describe the differences of a virtual reality game?
You just have all these different sensations that you can't get from a computer game, but, you know, I guess they can try.
Okay. Well, thanks for talking with me.
You're welcome.
I see your bikes, your motorcycles in the background. And
Media Pass has been produced by Frank Mahoney. For information, please visit www.blablabla.com or the following websites listed on your screen. But if the earth rumbles and the moon winks, expect the unexpected.